What's good, everybody? This is Raphael Garcia back on a Wednesday, January 23rd, and this is episode 9 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Episode 9. Um, yeah, it's pretty big. I'm almost at 10. Almost at 10. And I'm actually surprised I've been able to kind of stay kind of consistent with this one. If you've followed any of my other shows, you know that I've had an issue with consistency sometimes. So, we're coming along, chugging along here, and I've been doing pretty well. So I'm happy to say that. So yeah, with that in mind, I thank you for taking your time to listen to this show. I appreciate you doing such, and I appreciate you listening to the content that we put together on the Ratings podcast. Um, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to all the content that we do. Feel free to like and subscribe our content and share us on all your social media outlets when you have the opportunity. If you're listening to us live or listening on demand as well, as always, we appreciate you doing so because you don't have to. There's a lot of content out there, and I'm glad that you're taking the time to sit with me. Me and Shawan will be back tomorrow for another edition of the MMA Ratings podcast. So we'll be back to talk about a lot of different things that I hope we don't have some of the bad news that I heard today to talk about, but we do have some other topics, and we'll always be there every single Thursday at I think about 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. So feel free to join us there. But with that in mind, I want to go ahead and jump into the content that I wanted to focus on today, which is about some excitement that's going on within the WWE, and um, a lot of it is around Rey Mysterio and Andrade Almas, and I want to talk about that because I think it's great that we have some excitement around it, but I think that than just there's more to be excited about than just what these two guys are capable of doing in the ring. So the last 3 weeks, we've gotten some pretty fantastic matches between Andrade Almas and Rey Mysterio. As you know, Rey Mysterio is probably in my opinion, he's considered one of the goats. Maybe not always come. He doesn't always come up in individuals' top 10 categories, but he's just someone that's been so consistently good for an exceptional amount of time. I mean, you realize he's 44 years old, and he's probably putting on some of the best performances that he's done throughout his career. I recently wrote a reflection piece about his 1998 Halloween Havoc match with Eddie Guerrero, which is still one of my favorite matches of all time. And looking back at what he's done since then, it's um, it's phenomenal that he's come as far as he has, and that he continues to deliver. It was good to see him go away from WWE for a little while and come back to a pretty resounding welcoming. I was actually at SmackDown, what is it, 1000 when he came back, and the pop that he got was absolutely huge. But this feud with Almas is showing that he can still get the job done. And I love a lot about what we're seeing between these two men because it's not just the fact that they're doing great work in the ring week in and week out, but it's the fact that this is a storyline, in my opinion, or I guess, what's the word? This is a program between the two that has breadth, it has substance to it, and it has value without all the other superfluous stuff that WWE Creative seems to want to funnel down our throat. I want to use one of the main feuds going down on Raw right now as an example, and that's the feud between Ronda Rousey and Sasha Banks, two of probably the most interesting characters that are on the WWE roster. But what they're one side of it is Banks is continuing to impressed me just because the way she's so quickly able to elevate her game, not only in the ring but also on the mic and in the storyline format. But she's just leaving Rousey further and further behind, and it's almost like the overblown storytelling that they're trying to put into this and kind of letting her have her own free reign that's damaging that feud, in my opinion. I think they're going to have a fantastic match on Sunday, but it's still damaging the issue on my point of view. We're not getting that here with Almas and Mysterio, and I think part of it is because we had two characters that don't really do a lot of talking. Mysterio's never been a big talker, and to be honest, I don't even know if Almas can speak English because he's always spoke in Spanish, and Zelina has been his mouthpiece, so he may not even be able to speak Spanish, and that's neither here nor or speak English. Excuse me. That's neither here nor there. But the lack of over storytelling has made this that much more interesting to me. It's not around the title. It's not around a stupid storyline with Zelina trying to give her attention to one of the other men. No, it's just strictly fantastic wrestling between two high-level Mexican wrestlers, who one being the future and the other being a link to the past and one of the all-time greats. And they're doing this in a way that makes Almas look good without having to necessarily bury Mysterio along the way. Like if you look at how what's his name, Drew McIntyre buried Kurt Angle, while that fit his character, that's usually how they treat older guys when they're on their way out of the business. Mysterio is 44 years old and he's still putting on stellar matches from start to finish, and you see them trusting that he can still do so on a week in and week out basis, and he's been able to do that. They've delivered 3 weeks in a row now, and I'm so excited with what's going to continue on after last night's main event. Sorry, I always forget to turn my microphone back on. But what I want to talk about here is that this feud, it kind of reminds me of, and you saw this a little bit in last night's match. It reminds me of the series with Eddie Guerrero that kind of made Rey Mysterio famous back in the day, and a little bit of what occurred with him and Psychosis back in ECW as well. So he's obviously showing that he can still get the job done and that he can still compete at a high level. Then on the other hand, we have Almas, trying to who is trying to supplant Mysterio in every way, shape, or form. I do believe he's someone that's going to be a big star on the WWE roster, and that's a far cry from where he was when I originally was introduced for him. I wasn't familiar with him as La Sombra when he competed in Mexico and when he competed in New Japan. I had no inclination of who he was until he came into NXT back in 2015. And if you're familiar with his NXT run, it was very the initial part of it was lackluster. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a little white hat he used to wear to the ring, or the suspenders, whatever it may have been. But something about him just did not click initially, and he was at a point where he was. I want to kind of compare him to Hideo Itami, somebody who came in with a lot of fanfare that they knew, they being the minds behind WWE Creative, they knew that they had picked up someone who was a potential breakout star, someone that can get the job done within the rope, between the ropes, but has the ability to be so much more of that outside as well. They originally had that in Almas, but it didn't translate to what we were seeing week in and week out on NXT. I was not surprised when you heard rumors about him being unhappy because he wasn't being used, or he wasn't being used in the correct way. He was kind of he was almost on the cusp of becoming the jobber to the stars. You would see new guys come in to the organization, come into NXT, and they would be booked up against Almas so they can get pushed up the NXT roster, kind of the way Dolph Ziggler was initially used a while back in the way. I mean, he's still kind of used. And all of that changed right around the time that they put him with Zelina. So she, coming from, I think she came from TNA, or Impact Wrestling, let's call it what it really is. She was the mouthpiece that helped him get to the next level. She's excellent on the mic, excellent speaker, excellent in adding emotion and adding interest into the matches that or into the matches that he's involved in, and she's a draw. Not she's a draw with him. I'm glad they haven't put them. I hope they don't break these two up anytime soon. I mean, we all see that coming down the line because she can wrestle as well, and she can easily be in the contention or in the conversation for the women's title. But she was the inclusion to the Almas character that he needed to get to the next level. And get to the next level he did. We know about his feuds with Johnny Gargano, and that's actually a match I was using to show my girlfriend to try to help her get into wrestling because I think I thought it was a fantastic match. Their whole series, especially being the last one that was for the NXT title, I was totally blown away by what they were able to do. It was one of my top matches of the year last year, and a part of that is what the addition that she brought to that match. And I mean, of course, Gargano added another whole level to that as well too. And Almas hung in there. I think he made Aleister Black look good as well too during their feud. Almas is someone that can go from start to finish. So he is called up to NXT, and the situation suddenly changes. Weeks go by where he's not on TV. He is brought up with. They gave him some opening vignettes initially, and it just kind of fell off. It's eerily similar to what is going on with EC3 right now on the Raw roster, where you see him in these vignettes, and then you don't see him anymore. So you got to have some concern about EC3 because WWE has already missed out on him one time. They've already made a mistake of misusing him once and letting him go. So we're hoping that situation doesn't happen again. But what was concerning here was that Almas was being pushed into a situation where he could fall by the wayside, fall out of interest with the fans. He could become someone that's like, again, I'll use Dolph Ziggler again, someone that is taken as a joke, and everyone's well aware that he's never really going to get to that point where he's a champion. Talking about Dolph, I mean, there's again rumors about him leaving the WWE, and we're like, this comes up every year, every 2 years, and he doesn't leave, and every time he doesn't leave, he's again considered a joke. Almas, on the other hand, was taken off of TV. You never really got to see him. I heard of some great matches that he would have with Sin Cara, someone who he has links with in his past, that they were tearing it up on house shows. But we never got to see these matches live. We never got to see we never got to see him on TV. They were talked about them. I remember there was a while that they were promoting them, but it just never occurred. So Almas, from a point, was almost destined to be, I hate to use the term jobber to the stars as I just did, but he was destined to be someone that wasn't living up, just another individual that's misused from the NXT roster when they're brought up to the main roster. There's numerous other people who are being misused right now. The Revival, Ember Moon, Dana Brooke, hell, the Ascension, you could say that about them. So many different other names of people that were talented when they were on the Black and Yellow brand, and now they're on one of the main two roster slots, and it's like, what's really going on here? It makes me concerned for people like Adam Cole, Red Dragon. Makes me concerned for guys like Ricochet, War Machine, so many others that we've seen them do great work outside of the WWE. Now they're coming into NXT. It's like, well, what's really going to happen with them? But anyway, it's hard to really pinpoint where the exact switch was flipped when it came to Almas, because he was inserted into a feud with Rey Mysterio. I remember seeing some backstage vignettes and seeing some stuff on social media between the two. But things really kicked off on January 8th when Almas and Samoa Joe teamed up to face against Mysterio and another guy who's really kind of exploding as of late, Mustafa Ali. We've seen Ali from the Cruiserweight Classic. He wasn't supposed to be in that, but he was a last-minute step-in from the Cruiserweight Classic to 205 Live, and now on the main roster tearing it up. That's the exact type of story we want to see from a lot of these men and women as they move their way up the roster. But Almas and Samoa Joe got the victory over Mustafa Ali and Mysterio, which led to a one-on-one match between Almas and Mysterio on the 15th, which a lot of people were excited about. A lot of people were talking about from the minute it occurred. I remember I usually can't catch SmackDown live, but I was on the way home and I saw social media blowing up about how great that match was and how excited people were for what they were doing in the ring and some of the spots that they brought back. I mean, hell, that was a Canadian Destroyer. We haven't seen a Canadian Destroyer in the WWE for years. I remember people were shocked when John Cena broke out a power driver a couple years back. That's a move that's totally been banned from the promotion, understandably so, but we've seen so many different wrestlers use it on the indie scene and use it in such a creative fashion that it was great to see the WWE kind of opening up their playbook and letting more things go. So that was a match on the 15th, and then the match yesterday on the 22nd was even better. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match. They were given almost half an hour out of a 2-hour show, which is important because you don't get to see that too much on WWE Network anymore. WWE content on the main roster shows, SmackDown and Raw. We don't get to see those 15, 20-minute matches that are well put together, well thought out, and not too overly scripted. Like I've been saying, WWE creative has a hard time sometimes getting out of their own way, but that wasn't the case with this matchup here. And what was interesting is that a lot of, I think Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com mentioned before the match came on, I want to say it was around 8 o'clock or so, I saw his tweet about the fact that Mysterio and Almas were going to get a lot of time, and that they were going to basically be allowed to do whatever they want. Nothing was off the table. And we saw that come out when they started this match. And what was so impressive about this is a 2 out of 3 falls match, and you usually see those matches booked very oddly. You see someone get submitted to a submission hold that they would have never tapped to before, like a sleeper hold, or you see some type of disqualification or a count out, stuff that would never work in other matches. And instead of that, Almas and Mysterio hit big moves that they don't normally use to get like sudden shock pinfalls. For example, we haven't seen Almas use a top rope sit out powerbomb at any other point in time during his tenure in WWE. We hadn't seen Rey Mysterio hit a Canadian Destroyer other than the 2 previous matches that they've had in this feud. I can't think of seeing him hit one when he was on the indie circuit as well. So to see them get pinfalls on those big moves is exactly how this 2 out of 3 falls match should have been booked, and I hope that there's something that's taken from this for future matches as well, or best of 7 series or something like that. Oh man, that just blew my mind, the idea of these two in the best of 7 series. But either way, that little hiccup in the booking, hiccup in the storytelling in the match was just another testament to what makes these two so great. Yeah, they had some mistakes, they had some minor moments, but they continue to innovate in a way that makes you want to sit down and watch every time they get time together, because you don't know what they're going to do. You know they're going to do something different, but you don't quite know what they are going to do. So I believe last night's match ended in basically a stalemate because Samoa Joe came out, got involved, Randy Orton got involved just because of everyone's lead into the Royal Rumble, which, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not even really kind of excited about the Rumble this year, but that's neither here nor there. That's a whole nother conversation. But you can be excited about what's next for Almas and Mysterio. Is the feud over? I doubt it. What can happen next? I'm sure that they can put together some type of big match for these two, some type of stipulation match. I fully expect Almas to go over in the end because he can be someone that is pushed into the main event picture, and I'll totally be okay with that. But I would just love to see what Mysterio and Almas can do with each other next. Like I was just saying a second ago, the idea of a best out of 7 series between them two would be absolutely fantastic. I remember how excited we were about the best out of 7 series between Cesaro and Sheamus, which was again overly booked and totally botched. We all remember the best of 7 series between Chris Benoit and Booker T from their WCW days, which is probably, I mean, my one of, I'm sure if you ask anybody what would be their best series of matches, that series between those two will probably come up, as long as you don't ask on WWE TV, because they are not allowed to mention the man named Benoit, he whom will not be named. But either or, this there's so many different places that they can go between Almas and Mysterio, that I think that it excites me with what we may see in the morning, or not in the morning, excuse me, see in the future. And that is what's key about this feud, because for the last few weeks, WWE has been touting out the content or the idea of this new era, and I put it in quotes because no one has quite understood what they've meant by new era so far. We've been getting a lot of the same type of stuff for the most part. The matches and segments on Raw are pretty much the same thing. They're bringing back so much sexuality and what's the word, controversy when it comes to the women. So that's really kind of a throwback to the Attitude Era. There's nothing new about that. So it's more of the same that we've seen over the last few weeks since this term has been getting thrown around. So it makes you wonder, well, what's really new? What's really good? But this match here, it kind of can get you excited because you don't know what will be next. If Almas and Mysterio are booked in a match together in the near future, it's going to draw excitement because people are going to be intrigued in what they will see. Kind of the same way that Mustafa Ali is being used right now, because you don't really know what this guy is going to do. I mean, he could be booked in a match against Daniel Bryan right now. You have to question, like, are they really going to put him over and give him a solid win over the champion, or even put him into the put the belt around his waist? I doubt it. But there's still a level of excitement and intrigue around there because they are doing something totally new with him, and that is what the new era should be. But I don't think we're quite there yet. However, I'm sure WWE leadership is aware of how their ratings have struggled as of late, how they've had issues keeping the attention span of people who tune into their content, and one way of doing such is by doing things new, doing things in a more interesting fashion. And this match embodies that. These series of matches embodies that. The fact that they're allowing them to do more in the ring that hasn't been done in years embodies that, and that's what people really want to see. We don't want to see the same cookie cutter feuds and matches that we've been seeing for the last 2 years or so. And I think the rating scare that they've been getting now that they've been getting throughout the football season kind of really shine the light on just how bad WWE content have really become. And this series of matches being so different, being so interesting, being so exciting is what has people really talking about SmackDown, has people definitely promoting that show more than Raw. People being more willing to sit down and watch that content, which I think is fantastic. As I said, I don't get to watch it live, but I make it a point to catch the on-demand aspects of it as soon as it becomes available. So we have to wonder, is the new era going to be more like this, or are they just giving us a little bit of a tease and hoping that we hold our breath and continue watching just to kind of catch something in the future? I'm hoping it's more of the former instead of the latter. I think I said that right, where it's more about this is the direction where they're headed when it comes to how they are presenting their content. They have another player in the game. AEW is going to push. It'll be interesting. I'm not gonna overhype them as a lot of people are right now, but AEW is going to push them. I really do believe that. Triple H acknowledged them on the press call earlier today, I believe. He said that they have money and they can potentially be a big gun in the marketplace, and that's important because I mean that open marketplace is going to make it more difficult for WWE to automatically cultivate the top talent. If talent such as Rush, who was friends with Almas, looks around at WWE and says, oh, their content is really stagnant, fans aren't excited about their content, they're not doing anything new, something like ROH may be more interesting to me, something like AEW may be more interesting to me. We saw or we're hearing rumors that Almas kind of put the bug in his ear that, hey, WWE isn't all that's cracked up to be. Maybe you want to go somewhere else. So we saw Rush sign with Ring of Honor. We saw Benedito sign with Ring of Honor. Chris Jericho's gone to AEW. So many people are kind of spreading out across different promotions that it'll be interesting to see if this new threat of competition causes the WWE to really embrace doing things differently and giving fans new presentations, giving fans new matchups, new feuds, new types of matches, new arcs, new storylines, new characters. That's really what's been missing within their content over the last few years. I mean, we see some characters like the Velveteen Dream pop up. We've seen characters like Aleister Black pop up that get people excited, but that has not been able to translate when they come up to the main roster. Hopefully, this feud between Almas and Rey Mysterio is a change of pace for everyone involved, because I want to see not only these guys succeed, but I want to see pro wrestling succeed as a whole, because I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it for 20 some odd years of my life, and I want to continue enjoying it for the rest of my life as well too. So I want to see this stuff work. I want to see fans remain excited about this type of content. I want to see reasons that make me want to sit down and watch WWE. And right now, the feud between Andrade Almas and Rey Mysterio is probably one of the only ones. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and close the show out. And I haven't said it, but if I must say it just to make sure everyone understands, go back and watch the last 3 matches from January that have Mysterio and Almas involved in it. Sit down, watch them back to back. You'll appreciate both of those men, and you'll appreciate the time that you took out to do so. And as far as it goes about appreciating time, as always, I thank you for listening to our content here. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the MMA Ratings YouTube channel. We put out content we put out podcast content every Wednesday and Thursday. Written content goes up on the site MMAratings.net multiple times throughout the week, where I, Schwan Humes, Michael Ford, Adam Martin, I think his name is John Jordan, we all write content for that site, so feel free to go check out our work there. You can catch us on Instagram and Twitter at MMARatingsNet, and be sure to go, if you're an MMA fan, go to our website and rate the fights. You can tell us exactly what you thought of some of the big fights, especially the UFC's first showcase on ESPN was this past weekend. So go tell us what you thought of each one of those fights if you sat down and watched. But with that in mind, my name is Raphael. You can follow me at rgarcia_sports on Twitter, where I talk about everything from MMA to football to basketball to pro wrestling and everything in between. And with that in mind, I appreciate your time, and everyone have a great rest of the week.